Today's episode was originally broadcast in June 2026 as part of our Social Talent Live webinar, where we discuss the results of our annual State of Hiring survey. If you missed this free event, be sure to sign up for the next one over on socialtalent.com/live. In this conversation, Elias Albino, Global Head of Talent Acquisition at Syngenta, shares his perspective on how AI and automation are reshaping talent acquisition. From freeing up recruiter capacity and redefining the talent advisor role, to balancing efficiency with the need for human judgment, Elias offers a practical and thought-provoking look at where hiring is headed next. Enjoy the conversation.
And on that piece then, in terms of that future recruiter, I thought now might be a good time for us to bring on stage Elias Albino. And Elias is joining us from Syngenta. Syngenta is a global crop science business, probably used to be more of an agribusiness and now more of an agri-tech business. Elias, you can probably better explain it to us. And you're joining us from Montevideo in Uruguay today. Wonderful to have you. Elias, tell us about your business. Tell us about how crop science is changing, and then maybe we can dig into your hiring team and volumes.
Sure. So as you said, right, Syngenta is or was traditionally a chemical/ag business, and due to the transformation that we're seeing in many other areas, we're becoming more and more an ag tech organization, in the sense that, for example, for farmers, providing data and information on how to treat their crops, how to pick the right seed, how to deploy crop protection in the correct way is as important and as the active ingredient itself, right? But for us also, like, the stack aspect comes in the area of research and development, because traditionally, like in the crop protection space, for example, from research to go to market, the time can be up to 15 years. So if you can introduce through AI breakthroughs to the process of developing new active ingredients, you can imagine the type of impact that has in the business, not only in the business itself, but also in the customers, right? So the kind of our new purpose, which has been released recently, is bringing breakthrough for farmers in every field. And that field is the field of the farm, but also different fields of science and even potentially TA.
I love that. I love that. Outstanding in a field, as we say in Ireland. A description of Irish agricultural life. Elias, you're a big fan of the technology side of it, and
Yes.
I'd love to get your view first of all on how teams are using automation and AI to both automate and elevate. First of all, is that what you see as well in your business? And if so, can you share any insights and stories as to how your team is approaching that?
Yeah, sure. One thing though that I would like to mention, because having been I'm in a role now where I'm leading TA, but I have been in many different areas of HR, including 10 years of global HR business partner experience, business partnering with C-level executives and everything. So I am quite different, I think, than most people in HR, in the sense that I don't see myself as a TA guy. I see myself as an HR guy. And I often see that HR can be its own worst enemy. Because if you look, for example, at the information that you provided in the beginning of the webinar, a lot of that applies to other areas of HR. For example, if you look into the business partnering space, you have the exact same challenge around, if you look at someone that is a highly paid, business partner, there's a huge pressure towards reducing the number of those roles because they cost a fortune. But also, if you're not reducing, then what is the time that those people are spending? Where are they spending that time? Because if you have someone that is, for example, partnering with a C-level executive, but at the same time they have to do a lot of manual stuff because that's what the system limitations and challenges like that require, then you're basically wasting a massive amount of money, right? So this is an important piece, because often in HR, instead of thinking about the overall success of the function, we try to think about how can we better than the other side of the function, right? Like it is
Mm.
where and it's going to be a very important one because as talent partners get elevated, right, there will be friction with the talent management. There will be frictions with HR business partner. So that is a very important piece. So with that said, right, as you mentioned, there are two main major forces, let's just say, impacting us today across HR, which is AI and cost reduction, right? And those are interconnected. So for me, the mantra for my team, which I've been saying since the first day, is free up capacity to elevate capabilities. And because which is basically, it's a bit of a kind of a productivity concept in the end of the day, right? So that's what we're trying to do, and we're not doing that in isolation, as I mentioned, because again, I'm trying to do this not from a TA perspective, but from a broader enterprise and HR point of view, because our transformation of HR from a broader point of view in Syngenta is requiring TA to step up because the business partner is being asked to do something else, right? So that's where I see this dual mandate coming, where I don't think TA has an option. We we have, for example, if you look at Gartner, one of the trends they have for this year is this idea that talent advisor is the only path for recruiters. Like the traditional 360 recruiter, I don't think it's going to exist in the very near future, right? Because a lot of the transactional activities will be automated or eliminated, and much more is going to be expected from those talent partners. But then are they ready to get into some of the space that today business partners or talent management has? That's a question that I think we as a function need to answer.
And when you see that transactional work, Elias, like what are some of the areas that your team have targeted? And maybe just give us an idea how big that team is and what the scale of hiring
Yes.
is.
Yeah, so we hire about 4,000 people, 4,500 people a year, more or less. Those numbers can increase depending on the years. Of course, like, post-COVID, we had a really massive boom like everyone else, also agriculture in general, but recently we have been more a little bit more contained. But the challenge for us is that we do not have anything similar to kind of high volume recruitment, because due to the nature of our business, we recruit scientists, and even when we are working in areas like production and supply, logistics and stuff like this, the equipment that our operators need to manage, and the type of processes they manage require a certain level of skill. So we don't hire like hundreds of the same job. There might be variations of the same work level and function, but that require different needs. So for us, the for that reason, for us, kind of keeping the kind of the human in the loop is a requirement, because I don't see us fully automating processes. But with that said, or fully automated the recruitment itself. But with that said, we're really looking into how can we focus the activities of the talent partner and stuff that adds value, and move everything else to either AI or more efficient ways of operating, because AI is not the only solution for increasing, productivity. Like, for example, um, we have moved a lot of the operational activities to hubs that can be done from other locations at a lower cost. So the reason why I'm in Montevideo, for example, today, even though I'm originally kind of based in Basel, is because we're having a workshop with the team here due to the implementation of several talent acquisition operations process. We have a TA ops function. But I can give a concrete example, right, which we are developing together with IT and our HR digital team, which is this concept of using the kind of the broader HR agent that we have in the company, which is called Lauren, to fully automate the recreation process, meaning that the Lauren itself will provide the guidelines for the managers on what should be the right work level here, what should, what is the job description based on the information you provide. And then the opportunity that this created is that we are implementing, we have not done it yet, but we are in the process of implementing a change that sounds quite simple, but it has a big impact, which is because of the whole loring agentic capabilities, we're actually moving the RSM to before the rack is created, so that the talent partner can have a conversation with the manager and understand the need before the position is actually created. Because what happens today is that managers sometimes might think they need something, and after a conversation with a talent advisor, they realize, you know what, from a labor arbitrage perspective, maybe I should have posted that job somewhere else. And from a kind of Six Sigma perspective, this generates waste, because you basically have to go back, cancel the previous rack, create another one. So these are some of the things um, that AI opens up possibilities for us. And that's not, when I say us, is again not TA but HR, because the reason why we're doing this implementation is because we made a decision to not have BPs involved in this process anymore. For us, BPs are truly strategic partners for the top of the house, and they're not going to get involved anymore in interviews. They're also not getting involved anymore in offers. So offer process, for example, is fully owned by TA. That's the mandate that we received, which includes TA having to be able to provide equity information, market information, hold those difficult conversations with managers around what is the right compensation compared to the rest of the team. So again, you see where the boundaries start to kind of merge, right? It's like those are some of the areas that you would traditionally expect to be done by a HR business partner. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for TA to do more there.
And this is something we've discussed with other groups and leaders, you and I, where there is this conflict potentially if you don't address it, where there is overlap. You have managed to have clarity, it seems, between who does what. How do you get there? Like for folks here talking about a talent advisor 2.0, or we want to be a full business partner and do all this full talent work, you do have to address that elephant in the room, which is, hey, other people might be competing for this same type of work, or it might be confusing to the leaders in the business as to who I go to. So how did you partner with your colleagues across HR to get where you are today?
Yeah, well, we are still in the journey, right? Just to be very clear. So the broader transformation of HR and these changes to the HR business partner are still in the process. But the key aspect has been to really define through what we call a strategic design authority, clear mandates that are defined, at group level, where the decisions are then documented and communicated, so people understand what that impact is. Because the TA and HRBP is only one part of the puzzle. There's another piece where a lot of the activities which was before done by what we call kind of country BPs now has been moved into a new function that is called people partnering, which is really focused around the delivery of day-to-day HR activities and services to managers, but also like things related to projects or stuff with bigger complexity, but that has specific country implications. So the BP doesn't get involved anymore in the day-to-day of HR. It's truly a role that oversees things more from a broader kind of global point of view, or with some type of multi-dimensional aspect. So again, it's I don't think it's easy, to be honest, Johnny, because I think it's something that we're still going on. And there's a lot of legacy issues here, right? Like again, going back into HR being sometimes its worst enemy, we create artificial barriers between the areas of HR. I don't know why, but some people have this idea that someone in TA would never be able to be a business partner because the set of skills is completely different, as if it was some type of rocket science, when it's not. I have done business partnering, TA, L&D, talent management, ops, and I think this is where the curiosity plays a big role. I think everyone, if you have been in a function your entire life, maybe it's an opportunity for you just to try something else, because that's what allows you to then see the other side of the fence, right? So for me, we as HR need to be very careful not to create artificial barriers, because again, if I look into my business partnering experience, other functions often, when engaging CEOs or investors and everything, they talk about the value of the function. We don't. We talk about the value of TA versus BP versus talent manager versus like we are often in HR talking about this whole thing of like, oh, how do we find our place on the table? Like how many times have you heard this, right? And honestly, I think that the more we bring this topic, the more we're devaluing ourselves, because then people are not even questioning your value on the table. But then you start talking about that, then they are like, you know what, yeah, maybe I should question the value that they bring to the table. So we sometimes can be our worst enemy, right? We create artificial barriers, between areas of HR and what a talent partner should be doing and what a BP should be doing. So I think that's a mindset that needs to shift in HR.
I might bring a question in here from Michael Taylor, if you don't mind,
Yeah, of
related
course.
to that changing role. Michael's asking, what does that mean for the future of the RPO recruiter? And maybe we just
Yeah.
talk about the general recruiter as well. So, where do you see RPO recruiters fit into this mix? And what responsibilities will the recruiter have that they don't have today? And you touched on some of them. Maybe what's
Yes.
your broader
Yeah, I think
broader
there's
observation?
there's RPO and RPO, right? So the way I'm going to make a very simple kind of division, but I see proper RPO, meaning that, you do not have a recruitment function and you rely on an external provider to do your recruitment, which is, again, still very much a feasible business model, right? Especially because, if your main goal is filling kind of, high volume, and maybe you have a small function that deals with more senior roles and stuff like this. But I think something else that brings a lot of value, and that's where for at least for us, that's where I'm exploring, is we're calling staff augmentation, which is what are the areas of the TA work, from a work level, function, location, whatever, where the business is better served through a staff augmentation, through an RPO that does that, that represents us to handle, for example, certain high volume. And an example of an experimentation that we're doing now is um, language specific recruitment. When you have, for example, need for recruiting for French or German, whatever, because our model has been around kind of bringing labor arbitration and moving a lot of the roles into centers. Finding people that speak German and French, for example, in our center in Budapest is very difficult, right? So instead of being fighting like for a very limited number of recruiters that are available that speak French and German, what we are experimenting now is that what if one partner does those recruitments for those languages, and then is complements our team. So I still think RPO has a big role. Again, depending on the type of need you have as a company.
Do you see, Elias, when you look at the automation piece, because we talked about obviously the need to automate some of these processes to give space and time to
Yes.
that expansion of the role. Is it evenly balanced? Are you seeing the enough automation to drive enough space to elevate, or is there a lag in one of those areas?
Yeah, no, I think it's a first of all, it's critical, right? Because it's unfair to ask talent partners to do more if we don't take some stuff out of their plate, right? Like it's just going to lead to burnout and eventually kind of depreciation of the quality of the service. But I think there's also an aspect around being a bit more bold around this automation, because you mentioned some aspects. Um, Already, like interview scheduling and some of this whole low hanging fruit. But I think there's an opportunity for us to look into what truly needs to be done by a talent partner. And if you look into kind of the value that talent partner brings. So for example, one thing that I'm challenging my team, and it's something that I'm planning to do next year, and it's going to be a bit of an experimentation, is that I am seriously thinking about moving all of the screening activities to TA ops, meaning that the talent partners would receive a pre-screened set of candidates when they are dealing with managers. And the reason for this is because talent ops, the TA ops, can better leverage AI, right? Because they are the process excellence focus team, but also, right, it becomes an opportunity for us to address one of the biggest issues which we have when we overuse AI, let's just say, which is destroying career paths.
Mm.
So what I'm thinking is that we could start bringing kind of, the more junior people into the TA ops function, with them doing the screening, what you would traditionally do when you start recruiting. And then as you evolve your experience and your stakeholder management capabilities and stuff, then you could have a space into talent partnering. But for me, this is more valuable than necessarily pure AI based screening. At least for us, the screening, we have now AI as part of Smart Recruiters, um, which help us prioritize the screening, meaning that the recruiters, get some overview of which candidates are the better fit. But I don't see us, again, due to the nature of our job, fully having AI decide who moves through the pipeline, right? That's not going to happen. Also because we are an European-based company, and um,
EU
and
AI
as
Act just
Uri
prohibits
mentioned
it.
there
Mm.
in the chat, obviously when you start getting into that space of true automation and AI making decisions, is a minefield, right?
Mm.
And I think honestly that we don't understand yet the type of implications this will have. And I feel that we are in a bit in the same stage we were in the early days of GDPR, where eventually someone is going to get like $1 billion fine from the EU, and then we're all going to wake up to the reality that we are, right? So we need to be careful. This piece around automation, and to be fair, I also don't think it's fair, that an AI decides if I should move through a process or not, right? I think it needs to simplify the life of the recruiter. But if we go into a model where AI does all the decision and is basically kind of doing all the recruitment, I don't know what type of world will it be. Maybe eventually we will get there, and everyone will feel comfortable with that. But at least for the type of roles that we have, I don't feel comfortable at the moment. For me, human in the loop, it's still critical.
I love your optimism for the role. I think it's exciting. We've got just to bring onto the stage some of the comments, Jason. Again, putting in, I think it's a great move. As traditionally, HRBPs have been too focused on delivering exactly what the business asks versus challenging them to do what is best for the business. And TA has an opportunity at a seat at the table and to directly impact that business, which I think is a really good point, Jason. So I think it is a massive opportunity. It's something that recruiters should be excited for. So seeing automation as the route to get you to the point where you can expand or elevate your role. But to you, I have a couple of questions here. One is around measurement, right? So Jiraj has a question around measurement here, which is, I guess, summary. What should leaders measure to know whether this is all creating better hiring outcomes rather than just more automation and more activity? Like when you're building the business case for having the TA folks do more of a BP role in this area to have some automation, what wins that business case? What proof do you have to bring to the table?
Yeah, I think it's funny though, because shout out to Uri, because he's actually has helping us with some of our AI transformation. So glad to see him in the chat. But the key thing for me is that we, of course, will have some like business case type of metrics where we're looking into, okay, it's almost like an enabling aspect. In order to deliver the broader business case for the transformation of HR and where we save money as part of that transformation, TA needs to step in to take those responsibilities, because otherwise the entire business case falls apart. So that part is more around, okay, was TA capable of taking those, releasing capacity, let's just say, from the business partnering side. But I think there's also a challenge, and which to be honest, we have not been able yet to nail, and I know some other companies are ahead of us, which is all the more qualitative metrics, right? Like, what type of change that brought. Like, for example, we keep talking about this idea of the talent advisor being more strategic and everything, but who judges that, right? We might be like, you showed recently, Johnny, for my team, some of these statistics that kind of compare how the recruiter themselves see them, saying that, I think I'm strategic, and then you compare that to how the hiring manager sees it. and it's not the case. So we also need to look ourselves a bit in the mirror and really kind of assess how those changes that we're making are bringing or not concrete results. Like, for example, better retention rate, the type of stuff that we are exploring now, because we're partnering with our people insight and analytics team, is can we make some type of correlation between the recruitment process and the chances that that individual will be perceived as a high potential in the future. Meaning, was there any type of, like, were we able to bring more people that the business perceives as having a higher potential, or that are considered to be, having an opportunity to be in a fast track. So those type of things. But we're still in a journey. I don't feel that we have fully nailed that.
Alice, I really appreciate your honesty and for joining us today. I know you've got a busy week traveling in Montevideo and Uruguay, meeting with the team over the next 3 days as well. And great insights. And anyone who wants to kind of get into Elias's career and what else he's done, he did a brilliant podcast with us last year as well. It's available on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or LinkedIn as well. And we'll try and put some links out to everyone afterwards. Elias, thanks a million for joining us. It's been great having you.
Thank you, Johnny. Always a pleasure.